These practices are simply that. They're practice for the big game. For some reason, we think that we should be able to run a marathon psychologically or emotionally before training. Our work and our work with trauma, our work with distress, our work with our attachment issues, relational issues, all of that is the big game. And we need to practice, rehearse, get in shape, have the right equipment, and be ready for that. And so these SUP practices are to learn tools and skills for that. And in organic intelligence, we call this really the phase 2 work, where we are getting control over our attention and beginning to gain skills that we can use to be able to manage and feel confident about our upcoming game. In this time, I want to talk to you and lead you through some exercises of skillful means in relationship to images. You know, we've all had images in our minds that we're like, oh, I can't unsee that. I can't not see that anymore, you know? And so there may be images like that we want to begin to get some control over. Not because this is going to be the end game. It's not, because all of those images likely have some importance for the way that our system wants to grow its thresholds. But before that time, we want to make sure that we are not overwhelmed, overcome, or repeatedly exposed to toxic situations and toxic states of emotional distress or discomfort or confusion, things like that. So we're really working now to gain control over that. And in the image channel, we're going to have a lot of options. And so here's one of them, which is that each image that may be unpleasant also is amenable to change. I can change them slightly, and the images are what we would think of as retrieval cues or triggers that stimulate associations that we may want to shift. That is, we don't want every time that image comes around, you know, for it to have the high intensity that it may have started with. So we want to change its triggering environment. And for instance, you know, if I were to have had a scary experience with a dog at some point when I was young, then there is a notion of stimulus generalizability in which I may become afraid of all dogs. And so to get really to turn a corner on that, here's some ways to begin to think about that. One is we can change the image by changing that figure. So if there is an image, say, of a specific dog that was really scary to me, first of all, I'm not going to work with that image. I'm going to work with a related image, so another dog. And maybe a dog that, you know, I know that's a neighbor dog. I still don't like the dog because I'm scared of dogs, but I'm going to choose a neighbor dog that's really nice, but where I'm thinking, oh, I should like that dog because the dog likes me, it's really nice, we should be friends. And so I'll work with that dog, meaning I'll work with the image of that dog. So I imagine neighbor dog. Let's say it's a collie. So there's a neighbor dog, a collie. And so I notice the dog, and I'm going to give that dog a little bit of the features of what was uncomfortable to me in the original scary dog. So maybe it was snarling, and I see the image of this snarling dog. So I'm gonna image this neighbor collie snarling, and I notice, oh man, that does get me a little jacked up. That does get me a bit jacked up. And so then we can just stop the image and reorient. And I'm back and I'm reorienting. I bring my attention away from that stimulating image and bring it back into orientation, connecting to the environment through the senses and letting my eyes go where they want to go. That's control over my attention. So I had the attention on the image that was uncomfortable, and then I bring it off and bring it back into the here and now. Now let's do another iteration of that, another form of this exercise. Let's go back, see scary neighbor dog snarling, well, nice neighbor dog, but in this case, with the scary snarl, and then let's change its size. And why don't we just change its species while we're at it? So let's make it smaller, but say as small as like a beetle. So as small as a beetle, something like that. So there is this tiny, tiny, tiny dog snarling, this collie snarling. Right? My reaction is different to that. And so I can look at that and see this tiny, tiny snarling dog. And I have a very different response. A different emotional response is connected, associated with that, which means now I'm beginning to shift the triggering environment, the associations that are with that. Now for a different shift or a different alternative on that motif. Let's come back to the collie or to neighbor dog, whatever breed you got, and then that neighbor dog. Let's put the snarl on it, so it's doing its snarl, and then let's have it snarling at its own tail. So this time, have it snarling at its own tail and trying to catch its tail. So that thing that dogs do on occasion, twirling, trying to get its tail, snarling, right? Something like that. And, that's often a very entertaining scene to see a dog chasing its tail. We're going to leave aside any metaphors that may come to mind there. So that's another context. Full-size dog, now doing something really silly, but with the snarl. So we're adding onto that images that are associated with different feelings, incompatible states, two incompatible states. So there was the original image, snarling dog, now becomes friendly collie, and then with the snarl, friendly collie now chasing its tail. You see how it really gives us this opportunity to feel better about that, an aspect of the original image that was uncomfortable. And if you find that you can't get to a more positive state just with the spinning, then make it a spinning, snarling, chasing its own tail, beetle-size collie. And just give yourself a chance to see that. Just for practice, right? This is all training my image ability to shift my associational network. So we're seeing the beetle-sized collie that is chasing its tail. Right? Now, even if it's not super entertaining, it's not threatening in any way. And if it feels uncomfortable in any way, then shift one of the other parameters, like a different size, a different species, a different action that it's doing. Maybe it's just jumping up and down, or maybe it is sleeping and then it has a dream where it's snarling, and then it gets startled and runs under the bed and is scared, right? Create these scenarios that lend itself to giving you a different experience altogether, an experience that is really incompatible with the arousal of distress. And in that way, we begin to get control over the images that may come through that are less comfortable. And again, just a reminder that we don't start with the heavy images. That's game time. We are practicing. We're doing the practice. We're shooting our free throws now ahead of the game. The other technique and another approach would be to change the location. And let's practice now. Let's practice now with a biped. And again, the people that we would want to not have as a part of this exercise of like folks that are triggering, probably not family members, not people that were really had a large negative impact on your life, but just somebody that maybe is annoying or smarmy or unpleasant, or could be a coworker or somebody at the gym or something like that. Somebody you just don't really feel really well about. And since I do go to the gym on occasion, I do know that there are folks there that are likely candidates for this image role, this cameo appearance in your psyche. So now let's get an image of that person, whoever it is. It just could really do without. And then let's see their face. No, right? See their face. But then if it's just too much in your face, move that person back. Just create more distance between you and they. Maybe it's across the room. Or what if they go across the street? I send them across the street and I see them all the way over there. Or even like 100 yards away, down the next block. Or maybe in a tree on a hillside a mile away. Or maybe on the moon. Whatever it takes to get the distance where no longer does that image evoke the response of like any degree of discomfort at all. And likewise, you can do this all in all these different ways of changing that person's circumstance so it's really clear that they are not threatening. Now, the caveat to that is we would encourage you, I would encourage you not to harm the person or put them into a situation where they would be harmed. As the family of life, there is probably, no matter how much we would wish for the destruction of somebody else, there is probably still a part of us that recognizes them as part of the family of life. So we can get a lot done in this way of depotentiating triggers without violating a kind of moral fiber that we have. So let's just again, image a person that the person you can really do without, and just move them back as far as feels fully comfortable. As far as feels fully comfortable. And feel free to put them in a circumstance that creates a more positive emotion for you. And again, not so much revenge situations, although we're not going to look at gift emotion in the mouth, but still, maybe they are, say, on a merry-go-round, and the merry-go-round is just happening, and they're completely oblivious, and they're eating popcorn or something, or maybe they are. Maybe they have been turned into a 2-year-old, and they are now with their parent who's talking to them about their behavior and coaching them on what good behavior might be. Right? To give them the benefit of the doubt and really create a circumstance that might be helpful for them, but primarily helpful for us. Changing the circumstance, changing the associative triggering network. And then lastly, let's think of one more trick and tool that we can use to help us shift and gain control over our associational network. So how about this? How about someone that you know that has always meant well and maybe meant well for you, but really, kind of fell short, couldn't really be there for you in the way that you needed because you understand that it was really their own woundedness and their own history, their own traumatic past, their own lack of support that made them unable to be there for you. And again, we're thinking not so much about family or those that really caused you severe harm, but somebody just like a friend who wasn't able to show up for you when you needed them, or something like that. And then this is the change. This is the new scenario. Seeing that person that you have genuine empathy for, but where you also acknowledge that they fell short for you. And then just imagine them making the apology. Just hearing them and really sincerely coming around to saying, Basically that, I'm sorry. I would want to be there for you. I couldn't, I wanted to be. I said I could be, but I just couldn't, and I didn't know myself well enough. I'm so sorry. So sorry that hurt you. And just to hear that response and notice the shift that might bring for you. And then an extra step in there, which is to help them, and to help them in this fundamental being way, which is to imagine this person and the whole life trajectory that they had, the ways that they were ignored or bullied or neglected, wounded, hurt, traumatized, abused, given circumstances that they wouldn't wish for that then caused them their distress, discomfort, the compensation, the ways that they had to deform their personality and character in order just to survive, as we all have. And now, having seen some of that history and seeing some of their past, understanding, let's begin to change it, bit by bit. Let's begin to change those events in their past so that they come forward through their history with an entirely new memory of their life and an entirely new history themselves. So from the earliest parts, they were welcomed into this world. They had a nice birth, a welcoming environment, an unconditional, loving family, siblings that cared for them and taught them, parents that could really be there for them when they were sick, where they didn't have those accidents, where they didn't have those traumatic events, and where they did have the stumbles, someone was there for them to care for them. Someone was there to be there in support, with empathy, with love and kindness. And they went through school without bullying. I know this is imagination, but let's really stretch it here. Without the bullying, without the need to be like everybody else, where all the children could simply have enough that there was a place for everybody. Inclusion. Into their early adult life, so that by the time you get to know them, they are full and replete with everything that they could have needed. And what a person they would be if that were so. And now, for just a moment, see them as that person. See them having had everything that they needed in their life and more. And taking just a moment now to see how differently they look. How different is their face? How different is their body? How different is the look from their eyes as you look into their eyes? And just notice now what you see. And then how we feel seeing that different person who had a different chance in life. And yes, this is what we would wish perhaps for everyone, and including ourselves. And what a thought it might be that I might re-raise myself also with a new chance. From that thought, taking your time now with this feeling to reorient and come back into this room, letting your eyes go where they want to go.